Ooh, tomato hydrosol. Is that a thing? Can I make that from my sauce? So you want to make tomato hydrosol? Well, you got to go through the whole process of making the sauce first. For me, I'm making tomato sauce every year in fall when all my tomatoes are ripe. This year I grew 6 varieties that I'm going to put into my sauce, and those varieties will be making up our hydrosol as well. All right, so for my sauce, I just pretty much cut the tomatoes whole, put them in my Vitamix blender for about a minute or until I see that the mixture is completely homogeneous. So to speed things up, I keep the heat on the sauce as I'm filling the pot with the blended tomato mixture. This foam that you see here on the surface of the tomato sauce is the reason why you have to go through the process of blending the tomatoes and boiling it before using the Vevor still. As the sauce comes to a rolling boil, this foam and the fleshy material in the sauce both rise to the surface. So if you give it a nice stir, then you can separate the foam at the top when the rest sinks to the bottom, and then you can just scoop it up off of the surface with a slotted spoon, allowing the liquid to pass through and the foam to just get caught on top of the spoon. After getting your sauce to this stage where it's boiling and you've got the foam off the top, then you can put it into your still and collect the hydrosol that you can see is coming off of the surface of the pot right now. As you can see from the level of the sauce in this picture here, it took me a minute to actually commit to making the hydrosol from the tomato sauce. And I think it was after letting it cool and seeing the liquid on the surface that you could see right there before I decided I really have to make this. I also did some research into tomato hydrosol, and some sources say that it is rich in lycopene, which is the red pigment found in tomatoes, guavas, papayas, watermelon, and other fruits. Lycopene has been found to be good for our skin, our eyes, and our hearts. And so I'm going to experiment with using the hydrosol on my face for my wrinkles, and maybe even as some nutritive eye drops. Now once you have the sauce 3 inches below the lid, you can go ahead and get the lid ready. Outflow tubing, you want to have the seal on the top part of the lid, and then you're going to use the nut on the bottom side of the lid to connect the two. And you're just going to finger tighten it, and then after you get the thermometer on, you're going to take the wrench to tighten both outflow tubing and the thermometer. So the thermometer works the same way. You take the nut off, you keep the seal on so that it goes on the outside part of the lid, and then you put the nut on the inside of the lid and arrange the thermometer so that you can read it when the lid is on the still. Arrange the lid so that it will point in the appropriate direction so that you can hook the outflow tubing up to the condenser. Then go ahead and seal all 4 latches for the lid. Light the sauce so that it starts to heat up while you are installing the condenser. Next, you're going to install the condenser. You just slide the fitting right on. Use your fingers to tighten it most of the way, and then the wrench to about 1/4 to 1/2 turn. If there's any resistance when you go to turn this nut with your fingers, make sure you realign it. You do not want to have any leaks in this system, and stripping the nuts would cause leaks. Make sure that your valves are closed off, and then you can fill the condensing unit with about 2 liters of water. I use food grade tubing for collecting my hydrosol and essential oils, and then the clear tubing I hook up to the cooling system, and my cooling system consists of a tall round thermos that I can submerge a pump into and also add a big block of ice, because the water does actually get quite hot throughout the process if you do not add ice. Okay, so we're getting close to 200 degrees, and so that means that we're going to be seeing some production soon. It looked to me like there might be about 500 milliliters, maybe like a pint. So I'm going to stop between 250 and 500 mLs just to be safe. I don't want to create tomato paste. I just want to collect the water that I'll be driving off anyway. I usually wait for the block of ice because it melts too fast in the moving water. So I wait until the hydrosol is actually being produced, and that water being super cold is best. Once we can start hearing it, it's about to start coming out as hydrosol. So okay, can you hear that? So it's going to be coming out soon. You can actually feel the vibration in this tube, and you can hear it. There it is. Here's the hydrosol dripping out right there. Hey, we have tomato hydrosol coming out. Look at that. So now when I'm canning my tomato sauce, I can collect tomato hydrosol, which is just amazing for your skin. While you are making your sauce, you can have another product. Okay, so now we can go ahead and turn this down. We don't want to scald the sauce on the bottom, so we turn that down. Watch the temperature and the hydrosol coming out, and if it slows down, then we turn it up a little bit. So I'm going to go and get the ice to make sure that the condenser is super cold. Okay, so with the tomato hydrosol experiment completely underway here, I'm using all my observations to determine what heat I should keep the still at. After smelling the hydrosol and detecting that it's not burning, I go ahead and I turn the heat up. And then I turn my attention to the condensing unit, and I check the temperature here and decide that I'm going to add some ice because the water in the condenser is getting pretty warm. With the temperature increase, you can hear now that the hydrosol is really coming out. The sauce is boiling pretty heavily. The lid is actually moving up and down pretty rapidly. So I decide to turn the heat down and find that sweet spot where the heat is just perfect to keep that boil, but not be too harsh on the bottom of the sauce. During this time, the temperature on the gauge is reading 200 degrees Fahrenheit. And here I turn the temperature down again, and almost immediately you see the effect. So that medium temperature right there was probably perfect. And I probably should have just kept it at that stage for um, another 100 mLs, maybe 50 of hydrosol, and then called it a day. Instead of just letting it evaporate into the air, we collected it here as hydrosol. And so now we'll figure out, besides just spraying it on our faces, how else to use it. But now I have this awesome product. So if you like doing these interesting little experiments in your kitchen with me as a kitchen herbalist and a homesteader, please like and subscribe to our channel, and you'll get notified anytime I make another hydrosol or different kind of product from my Vevor alcohol distiller. It is so cool. And you can also make essential oils. Okay, so when you're done with collecting hydrosol, you can go ahead and break the still down, and you can collect that 10 mLs of hydrosol that's left in the coils when it's cool enough to touch. And I just use the wrench for about a quarter turn, just like I did, to tighten it, and then I can use my fingers to loosen the nut the rest of the way and detach the condenser. Now that we've got the condensing unit detached, we can go ahead and empty the water from the condensing unit so that we can then drain the remaining hydrosol from the coil. So here I just leave the hydrosol tubing in the jar while I empty out the condenser. And then once I get the condenser emptied, I close off the valves so that when I'm rotating the condenser to get the hydrosol out, it's not spilling anything on the floor. You might be tempted here to blow the rest of the hydrosol out through the tubing, but that would contaminate your hydrosol, so don't do that. And here you have your hydrosol. Alright, so now let's check inside the still. So I'm needing to use some hot pads here to get the still open. It's pretty hot and I don't want to really burn myself. Of course, you can wait for it to cool down a bit, but leaving it hot allows you to move from making your hydrosol directly to canning your sauce. Now when I lift the lid off here, you can see that the level of the sauce has gone down about an inch, and there is still plenty of water left in the sauce. That means that I can still drive off some more water and turn the heat back on, but this time I'm not going to collect the hydrosol because I want to be able to stir the sauce so that it doesn't burn as the water is getting driven off there. After this little experiment, I've learned that I can make an eyeball estimate of the volume of hydrosol that's present in my sauce, and then I can collect about half of my estimated volume and be totally safe with my sauce not burning and having a plentiful amount of hydrosol at the end of the process. And now since I have the whole setup to be jarring my sauce at this point, I can just take the sauce directly out of the Vevor still once I'm happy with how much water has been driven off, and I can go ahead and fill my jars and put them in the canner and get them pressure sealed. Keep an eye out for the tomato sauce video. Or better yet, subscribe to our channel and you'll be notified anytime we release a new video. Thanks for watching. Keep smiling because you are smart, you are blessed, and you can do anything.